It's just after sunrise on a Saturday in March. A young woman walks into an emergency room in Dunlap, Tennessee, bleeding from stab wounds. She's 31 years old. Her name is Jada Gholston. The doctors patch her up. The wounds aren't life-threatening. And then the questions start. What happened to you? She tells them a man attacked her boyfriend while the two of them were in bed together. An unidentified man. A stranger, it sounds like. Someone who broke in, hurt them, and vanished into the night. Deputies from the Sequatchie County Sheriff's Office write it down and go to work. They trace the story back to a house a few miles outside town, out on Powerline Road. And that's when everything she told them starts to fall apart. Because there was a man, there was an attack, there was a bed, but he wasn't a stranger. He was her husband. And by the time deputies pulled into that driveway, one person was already dead, stuffed inside a trash can. Stick around, because what deputies found in that house is disturbing enough on its own. But it's what came out in the weeks afterward. A family's accusation, a sheriff who wouldn't deny it, and a threat allegedly made 18 months before anyone died. That turns this from a domestic tragedy into something much darker. And by the end of this video, I want you to tell me in the comments, do you think this was a man who snapped in a moment of rage? Or a man who followed through on a promise? Let's get into it. Dunlap sits about 40 miles north of Chattanooga, in Sequatchie County, a place with roughly 15,000 people and not much of a violent crime history. This is the kind of county where a stabbing is the biggest thing that happens all year. When deputies arrived at the house on Powerline Road, a man was standing in the doorway. He was covered in blood. His hands were cut open. He was 41 years old. His name was Jonathan Belk. And standing right there in his own front doorway, officers put it together. This was Jada Gholston's husband. The man she'd described as an unidentified attacker was the man who lived in that house. Inside, they found two men with injuries from a cutting weapon. One was Belk himself, with wounds that weren't life-threatening. The other man was already dead. His name was Billy Jean Floyd. He was 18 years old. I'm not going to describe the scene in detail. It doesn't need to be dwelled on. And honestly, it doesn't help you understand what actually happened here. What matters is this. An 18-year-old was dead. A husband was standing in the doorway bleeding. And a wife was already at the hospital telling a story that wasn't true. The sheriff's office said that day that Belk had come home from a trip earlier than expected, found Floyd at the house with his wife, and attacked them both. Sheriff Bill Phillips told reporters this was an isolated incident. One house, one situation, and there was no reason for the wider community to be scared. That was the simple version. It's also the last simple thing anyone would say about this case. Before we go further, I want you to know who Billy Floyd actually was. Because in almost every article written about this case, he's a name in the third paragraph. A detail. I don't want to do that. He was born on March 5th, 2007, in Jasper, Tennessee, one valley over from where he died. People who knew him called him Lil Bill. His obituary is short, the way obituaries for 18-year-olds always are, because there isn't a career, or a marriage, or a house to list yet. Just what he loved: hunting, fishing, four-wheelers, and taking apart anything with an engine, and being around his family and his friends. A family friend had to start a fundraiser just to cover the funeral, because nobody plans for burying an 18-year-old. His godmother, Brandy Smart, had known him since the day he was born. About a week and a half after his death, she told a local news station that he was somebody a lot of people loved, somebody who'd give you the shirt off his back. He was buried at Lassiter Cemetery, in the valley he grew up in. He never got the chance to leave it. Keep him in mind, because the version of this story that went viral almost completely forgot he existed. Here's what actually made this case national news. Not the killing, not the victim. One sentence. After Belk was arrested, deputies asked him a routine question. Was he worried about anything other than his legal situation? According to the arrest report, he said he was worried about his relationship with his wife. And then he reportedly added, due to the fact that I offed him. That line went everywhere. The New York Post ran it. The Independent ran it. E! News ran it. Local stations from Oregon to North Carolina picked it up. Because it's grotesque in a way that's easy to package. A man just arrested for killing someone, and his big worry is whether his marriage survives it. But here's what I want you to actually sit with for a second. That's a line recorded by a police officer in a report. It hasn't been tested in a courtroom. It's not a signed confession. And as far as any public record shows, Belk has never entered a plea to anything. It's also, for most people who heard about this case, the only thing they ever learned about it. The quote traveled. The dead 18-year-old didn't. And what his family started saying 12 days later barely made it outside Southeast Tennessee at all. That's coming up next, and it changes everything about how you should read this case. But first, if you're the kind of person who wants the full story, not just the headline that goes viral, hit subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is built on. And if you've got a theory about what really happened in that house, drop it in the comments before we get to the family side of this. I want to know what you're thinking right now, before you hear what's next. Okay, let's keep going. 12 days after Billy Floyd died, a Chattanooga news station sat down with his godmother, Brandy Smart. What she said on camera reframes this entire case. She said Billy and Jada Gholston had been in a sexual relationship for at least a year and a half, and that it started when Billy was 15 years old. She said that around 18 months before the killing, Jonathan Belk had directly warned Billy to stay away from his wife. And she said Belk went further than a warning. According to her, he told Billy that once he turned 18, he was going to kill him. I want to be completely upfront with you. This is an allegation from a grieving godmother, made to a reporter less than 2 weeks after she lost a child she'd known his entire life. None of it has been proven in court. It needs to be weighed exactly as what it is. One person's account. But here's the part that makes it impossible to just dismiss. The reporter took those claims straight to Sheriff Bill Phillips and asked him about it on camera. Specifically, whether the relationship began when Billy was 15. Phillips didn't confirm it. He also didn't deny it. He said it was part of the ongoing investigation, that his team was still conducting interviews, and that he expected more charges to be filed in the case. Think about that for a second. A sheriff had a golden opportunity to shut down a horrifying rumor with one word. No, he didn't take it. Do you think that's because he legally couldn't comment? Or because he couldn't honestly say it wasn't true? Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, if that allegation is true, it's not just a messy love triangle detail. It's a crime. And to understand why, you need to know how Tennessee law actually treats this. The age of consent in Tennessee is 18, higher than most states. Someone under 18 legally cannot consent to sexual activity, and it doesn't matter if they say they were willing. That's not a defense under the law. There is an exception, sometimes called a Romeo and Juliet law, for people who are close in age to each other, under a 4-year gap. But once the age gap goes above that, the offense gets more serious, depending on how big the gap is. When the younger person is between 13 and 18, and the older person is 10 or more years older, Tennessee calls that aggravated statutory rape. It's the most serious tier of statutory rape charges in the state, a felony, with real prison time, and it requires the offender to register as a sex offender if convicted. Jada Gholston was 31 in March 2025. Billy Floyd was 15 from March 2022 to March 2023. The age gap between them was roughly 13 years. So let's say what the family's claim actually means, in plain terms. This isn't an accusation about an affair between two adults. This is an accusation that a boy was being sexually abused inside that house for years, that at least one adult in that home knew about it, and that it didn't end because anyone stepped in to protect him. It ended because he was killed. Again, that's the family's account. It hasn't led to any publicly reported charge, but knowing the actual law here changes how you hear everything else in this case. The day after Brandy Smart's interview aired, the same news station published a second report, this time about Jonathan Belk's past. A woman named Angie Cash came forward. She said she wasn't surprised at all to hear Belk had been arrested for murder. In her words, this was something people should have seen coming. She said that 12 years earlier, when her son was 16 years old, he was attacked by Belk inside a Walmart. Belk was 29 at the time. According to Cash, Belk's explanation was that Jada, his wife, had told him the boy had been staring at her and made a sexual gesture toward her inside the store. Cash said she found that very hard to believe. She described her son as one of the most polite kids in the community. Court records confirm the outcome, even if they can't confirm the full story behind it. Belk was originally charged with assault on a minor. That charge was later reduced to vandalism. He was ordered to pay restitution, the family's medical bills, and the wages Cash lost while caring for her son afterward. Sit with that pattern for a second. A teenage boy, an accusation involving his wife, a violent reaction from Belk, 12 years apart, and the same wife's name attached to both incidents. Angie Cash said something else that might be the fairest sentence anyone said about this whole case out loud. Whatever Billy Floyd had or hadn't been involved in, it didn't matter.
Doesn't matter. He was a child. He had just turned to be a legal adult, and my heart breaks for them.
Does a pattern like that change how you see the man who snapped narrative? Or does it make you think something else was going on here entirely? I want your take in the comments. Belk was booked on a charge of criminal homicide. That word gets treated like a conclusion, but in Tennessee law, it's really just an umbrella term. Under criminal homicide, you've got first-degree murder, second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, and more. The death is identical in every one of those categories. What separates them is what the state can prove about the killer's state of mind. A killing that was planned in advance sits at the very top, first-degree murder. A killing that happened in a sudden burst of passion with no time to think sits far below it, voluntary manslaughter. Tennessee defines voluntary manslaughter as a killing committed in a state of passion, caused by adequate provocation, with no time to cool off. And the textbook example lawyers use to explain that exact law? A spouse walking in on an affair. That's exactly why the alleged threat matters so much. A killing done in a sudden fit of rage, and a killing carried out on a schedule that was allegedly announced 18 months in advance. Those are not the same crime. They're not even close, legally speaking. So here's the real question this case hinges on. Was Jonathan Belk a man who lost control the second he walked through that door? Or was he a man who did, 3 days after Billy Floyd's 18th birthday, exactly what his godmother says he promised to do a year and a half earlier? There's one more detail that sat strangely with people who followed this case closely. Nearly 2 weeks after the killing, Sheriff Phillips told reporters that investigators were still searching for the knife used in the attack. Think about that. A man was found standing in his own doorway, covered in blood, with a body inside the house and his wife already at the hospital, and nearly 2 weeks later, the murder weapon still hadn't been found. On its own, That's not proof of anything. Weapons get lost in chaotic situations all the time. Thrown, buried, dropped somewhere in a panic. But investigators don't usually mention a gap like that publicly, unless they're hoping someone out there might help close it. And that's really where this story stops. The viral quote had already reached millions of readers. The godmother's allegations had aired exactly once, on a local station most people outside Tennessee never saw, and the sheriff's office was still doing interviews, still looking for a knife, and still saying, on the record, that they expected more charges to come. That was March of 2025. As far as any public record shows, that promise of more charges has never been followed up on. There's no public record of an indictment, a plea, a trial, a verdict, or a sentence for Jonathan Belk. He was held on a charge of criminal homicide, and the case was sent to the district attorney. Nobody else has been publicly charged, including over the allegation that Billy was abused starting at age 15. Jada Gholston, who was stabbed that same night, hasn't been charged with anything in any reporting available. That silence doesn't prove anything either way. But the last public statement anyone made about Billy Floyd's death was a sheriff saying he expected more charges to come. And then, nothing. There's a version of this story that's easy to tell, and it's the one that went around the world. A man comes home early, finds his wife with someone else, says something horrifying to police afterward. It's ugly, but it's tidy. It lets you feel like you understand a tragedy without actually sitting with it. The version Billy Floyd's family tells isn't tidy at all. In their telling, Billy was 15 when this started. A kid who liked hunting and fishing and pulling engines apart, who'd give you the shirt off his back, and who spent 2.5 years in a house no adult should have ever let him be in. They say a threat was made against his life, with a date attached to it, his 18th birthday. We don't know for certain that all of that is true. It would be wrong to present it to you as proven fact. But it's the account of the people who loved him, and I think it deserves more than a single local news segment that aired once and disappeared. Billy Floyd was 18 years old for exactly 3 days. He's buried in the valley he came from, about half an hour from the house on Powerline Road, a valley he never got the chance to leave. If you made it this far, I want to know. Knowing everything you just heard, the viral quote, the sheriff's non-denial, the pattern from 12 years earlier, do you think justice has actually been done here? Or is this a case that's quietly gone cold, while everyone moved on to the next headline? Drop your thoughts below, and if you want more cases like this one, the ones that get one viral headline and then disappear, subscribe, because that's exactly what we dig up here every week. Thanks for watching.